This is Sam. Sam was a businessman and held a few commercial investment properties, which were all leased. Sam came to Wollerman Shacklock Lawyers to have his will prepared. Whilst Trish was preparing Sam's will, she asked him whether he reviews his leases periodically to ensure that there have been no changes that may impact the validity of the lease or affect his rights under the lease. Sam does not generally review them, as he told Trish, and told her that they're managed by an agent who takes care of them. Trish suggested that it may be worthwhile doing a review periodically and explained all the things that should be checked. She went through with Sam some of the things that often can be overlooked and cause problems down the track if they're not addressed. Sam admitted that he had not considered any of these factors and would contact Trish at a later date to discuss having all of his leases reviewed. Sam came into Wollerman Shacklock a few days later and signed his will with Trish. He told Trish that he was going to be away for around 4 months, and once he was back, he would contact her to have all of his leases reviewed. 3 months later, Trish received an email from Sam. In this email, Sam advised Trish that one of the tenants in his commercial properties had stopped paying the rent for the previous 3 months and was in default under the lease. He asked Trish if she was able to assist in getting the unpaid rent paid and assisting with the breach of lease. Trish said she was able to assist and asked Sam for a copy of the lease. Sam sent Trish a copy of the lease. She reviewed the lease thoroughly and saw immediately that the tenant named in the lease was a company. She did a company search of the tenant and found that the company had actually been deregistered 2 months earlier. This meant that the tenant was no longer a legal entity, and therefore the lease technically had no tenant. Trish sent Sam an email with the company search she had undertaken for the tenant, showing that the tenant company had been deregistered, meaning that Sam had no legal tenant. Sam read Trish's email and went into a panic. He called her straight away and asked her if there was anything she could do to recover the unpaid rent under the lease, and if there was anything that could be done to have the tenant vacate the property. Luckily, Trish knew what to check for in the lease and had found that the directors of the deregistered company had signed personal guarantees under the lease, which meant that they could be personally pursued for payment of the unpaid rent. She explained to Sam that if the directors did not sign these individual guarantees, Sam would have very little recourse to recover the unpaid monies. Trish was able to contact the directors of the tenant company seeking reimbursement of the unpaid rent and undertook the necessary steps to have the tenant vacate the property. Luckily, the directors of the tenant company were obliging and paid the unpaid rent in accordance with the lease. They advised Trish that they were already in the process of vacating the property and would vacate the property completely within 2 weeks. Trish advised the tenant that they were obligated to continue paying rent in accordance with the lease until a new tenant had been secured for the property, which the tenant did. Simon had returned from his holiday and came back in to see Trish. He was so thankful she was able to recover the unpaid rent from the tenant company directors and have them vacate the property, allowing him to find a new tenant. He said he was shocked that the tenant company had been deregistered and would not have even thought to check it until it was way too late. This time, he got Trish to prepare the new lease for the new tenant, ensuring that he would not end up in the same situation again. He also brought the leases for his other properties in and asked Trish to do a thorough review of those too. Trish reviewed Sam's other leases and found a few issues that she suggested Sam attend to in order to safeguard himself in future. Sam asked Trish to assist in attending to those issues in order to protect himself under the leases, as he did not want to end up in another situation like he did last time. Trish attended to resolving the issues highlighted, and Sam was relieved, knowing that he was now fully protected under all of his leases. Sam was so grateful for Trish's expertise and advice on the leases and could not believe how easy it can be to be exposed to risk without realizing. Sam could have ended up in a far worse position had those directors of the deregistered company not been willing to oblige. Luckily they were, but this could have ended up much worse. Sam said from now on he would always be ensuring Trish reviewed his leases periodically so that he was not at risk like he was before. This case study is a great example of how one small thing omitted from the lease could have left Sam at risk of losing thousands of dollars. Ensuring that your leases are properly prepared and reviewed regularly can help mitigate risks and identify issues that could arise before it is too late. If you're requiring a lease to be drafted, have leases, and would like them to be reviewed, whether you just want advice on the lease, whether you're a tenant or the landlord, be sure to contact Trish, as she's one of few accredited property law specialists in Victoria. She's well equipped to handle any lease matters. Contact us today on 9707 1155 or admin@wslegal.com.au.